Hey, poets and poetry fans. This is James P. Wagner at Local Gems Press. A lot of you had a good positive response to a video we previously did on understanding poetic meter in general, but some of you wanted more information about the specific types of poetic meters, so decided we're going to be doing videos pretty much on each of the main poetic feet so that we could go into that a little bit more in depth with some examples. So today we're doing Trochaic meter, which is pretty much the opposite of iambic pentameter. So trochee and poetic meter. Well, like we say in the previous video, poetic meter is the basic rhythmic structure of a poem, and trochaic meter is one of the main meters of poetry in the Western world. Specifically, what is a trochee? It's a two-syllable metric pattern in poetry, or a foot, which is a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable in English. But the tradition of trochee goes back much farther than just English, because in Latin or Greek, this was depicted as a heavy syllable followed by a light one. So basically, again, the opposite of iambic pentameter, which is unstressed and stressed, like we see in the Shakespearean sonnets, etc. This is stressed and unstressed. And it's often used in drama. In fact, Shakespeare actually used this a lot in soliloquies in his plays, and through a lot of epic poetry, this style was actually used pretty frequently. Here's just a few examples of some trochaic words. Happy, as you can see with the two syllables there, one stressed, unstressed. Hammer, cleaver, or clever, but cleaver too. Shatter, roses, and planet. So those are just some examples of some words that are built in trochaic, but also the combination of words together can also make a trochaic sound. It doesn't necessarily need to be a word in and of itself that does it. Sometimes the combination of two words will actually make that sound itself. One of the more famous examples of using trochaic meter in a poem is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's Song of Hiawatha, where he used trochaic tetrameter, or trochee, 4 feet of trochee. So pretty much, 8 syllables total, 4 feet, 4 trochees. Like you can see here depicted: by the shores of Gitche Gumee, by the shining big seawater. You can see there how it's cut up into the 4 poetic feet, which are all trochees, and so tetrameter. And you can see the stressed, unstressed pattern inside the poem itself. Here's a passage from the Song of Hiawatha that I'm going to read to kind of just give a bigger sense of the trochaic pattern. By the shores of Gitche Gumee, by the shining big seawater, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon, Nokomis. Dark behind it rose the forest, rose the black and gloomy pine trees, rose the firs with cones upon them. Bright before it beat the water, beat the clear and sunny water, beat the shining big sea water. There the wrinkled old Nokomis nursed the little Hiawatha. Little fact about this: Longfellow actually claimed that he chose this meter because he felt like it sounded more like the Native American chants that American culture was kind of becoming familiar with at the time, but not everybody at the time believed that. They thought that he was actually just trying to copy some epic and dramatic works that he translated from other languages, like the Kalevala, and then there were Latin and Greek classics that used trochaic tetrameter, so people kind of accused him of doing that. Another example of a very well-known poem that uses trochaic meter, in this case trochaic octameter, is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. We talked about this a little bit in the previous video, but here's the final passage of that poem. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of the demons that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. So as you can see there, pretty much most of The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe is trochaic octameter, or 8 feet, except for that last line there, which is a half measure, pretty much for the dramatic finish. But so as you can see, there's a certain ambiance of the stress at the start of the syllable, or at the start of the foot, the stress syllable, that kind of gives more of the dramatic, somewhat uplifted ambiance to the idea of the poem, which is why, or whatever the poet is saying, which is why in these examples and plenty of others, poets have chosen trochaic meter rather than iambic or anapest or dactylic to go along with the mood of their poem or their piece of drama. So hopefully this gives a little bit more of an example and explanation about trochaic meter. Like I said, we're going to go into all the different types of poetic meter, including the mythical spondee and Feeric, which is something you don't hear about very often. So we're going to upload these pretty frequently, and then eventually we'll have the entire set. And then maybe we'll talk a little bit also about not just the words that are built in, like trochaic, iambic, etc., but the combination of words that actually form these particular sounds as well. So hopefully you got something out of this, and we'll see you next time. Take care.